Thank you everyone for joining us tonight. I'm super excited to present on this topic, mainly because if you're here tonight, it's most likely because you have a home to sell and you are not quite sure what to do with all the appreciation you've gotten the last couple of years. You have this built up equity, but you don't know where to go because now you're gonna take that rate that you have that's probably around 3.5% and go to move up into something that's maybe 7.5%, and that home you're sitting in is looking a whole heck of a lot better. So that's the main thing that we're gonna talk about tonight, and we have a bunch of ways to get there and to kind of coach you through the process of what to do with all that equity and appreciation that you've gotten in the last couple of years. My name is Stephanie Wells. I am the team lead at Living Local Northwest, brokered by eXp Realty. Our team is located right here in Woodburn. We're really passionate about this community, and we know that the growth we've had over the last couple of years has been a lot, and so just educating our community about what that looks like is part of this presentation as well tonight.
I'm Robert Lucas, and I grew up in Oregon, and I work with Stephanie and her team, and I also am licensed in Washington as well, so I can help in both those locations. I have two daughters, and both of them are driving now, which is great. And one of my passions is actually helping first-time home buyers as well. So, one of my passions is helping out first-time home buyers get into a home.
Awesome, thanks.
I'm Dylan Wells, Buildwell Northwest, a residential remodel contractor here in the Willamette Valley, and we look to use some of your equity to improve your home.
So what we're going to cover today, one is what happened with the Woodburn market, the appreciation from 2018 to 2020, but also appreciation from 2020 to now. Also, really want to just kind of address the whole why we are not headed for a crash. Equity, what is it? You know, that's a word that you probably commonly hear is home equity, but what is it? How do you use it? How do you leverage it? And how much risk tolerance you can actually handle yourself. Rates, what the rates are now and what they have been historically, and how rates are actually a necessary evil. So the other thing is, why is it important to be here, or why is it important that you're paying attention to this? One, you want to prepare for your next step. What's the famous saying? If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So you want to make sure you prepare for your next step. Are you making baby steps, or are you making some big jumps? We also feel it's our obligation as professionals in this market to help inform the public. So there's a lot of misinformation on the internet. I'm sure you guys have heard, not everything on the internet is true. Don't believe the news. That's what we're here to do, is educate you. Shape the future of our community. We, like Stephanie had mentioned earlier, very passionate about our community, and we want to make sure we shape that and educate the community. Estate and financial planning, really huge, important thing to be knowledgeable about. Insurance valuation, home improvement decisions. You know, Dylan is probably going to get into that a little bit here today. What home improvements are going to be worth actually looking into. And then property taxes, you know, how is that even calculated and everything, so.
So there's a lot of ways that we evaluate the market and the statistics and what goes into, are we in a healthy market? Should we be worried about things? And then watch how things are trending up or down. The first thing that we do is we look at the days on the market. So that means from the day that we list a home until the day that it gets a pending offer, how many days was it marketed to the public before it was sold? We heard a lot of times during the pandemic that things were going over asking in one day on the market, or first week we had multiple offers, that kind of thing. That's really not normal and it's not healthy. We're right back to a healthy, balanced market, and we did some diving into what these statistics look like. And so when you hear these things on the news, you can kind of have a frame of reference for what you should be hearing. The other thing that we hear a lot, and this is what the news reports on, this is one thing that's pretty hard to screw up, so you can listen to this statistic from all those newscasters, but months of inventory, a healthy number of months of inventory is 3. And what that means is that if you stopped putting new homes on the market tomorrow and you waited for all of them to sell, at the rate that homes are selling, it would take 3 months to sell all of those homes in a healthy market. And during the pandemic, we were down to things like 0.6 months of inventory, which means that if you stop selling, all of the homes would be gone in less than 3 weeks, which is not a healthy way to sell homes. It's not a healthy way for agents to be able to advising their clients. When we were during during the recession, we were up to 6, 7, 8, 9 months of inventory, which is just too long as well. It was really pushing prices down. And what that says is there was just a humongous oversupply of homes on the market. So months of inventory, a healthy number is 3. We'll talk about where we were during the pandemic, where we're at now. The other thing that we look at is the median sold price. Now we use the median, not the average. So this is the most number of homes. So this isn't taking the highest and the lowest and dividing it by the total number of homes. This is strictly the median. So most of the homes sell at this price point. So we will look at how that, we're looking at numbers from 2018 and now we're in 2013. We're looking at numbers from 2018 and now we're in 2023. So we're looking at 5, almost 6 years now coming up of data, and that number has increased significantly. When we talk about rates as a factor in this, that's where that total price really comes into play as well. Another thing that we talk about is the year-over-year percentage change, and really that's just appreciation. If you took this home today and you sold it in 1 year from now, what would it be worth? And that gives you a really great way to evaluate investment properties as well. So if you know this area has an average of say 6% a year, you plan to keep this property for 11 years, you could do that compounding interest and figure out what that property would most likely be worth in that, say, 11 years you wanted to keep it. So we use all of these factors when we educate sellers on when it's a good time to put their home when it's a good time to put their home on the market, when we help you evaluate a investment property, but also when we help you evaluate a home that you're buying. We talk to you about things like how long you're going to stay in it, what do you plan to do after this home, and so that when you're buying this home, it's based on educated decisions and not just emotion. The next number of things that we're going to look at is the number of properties that were sold year over year. We've watched this number for almost 10 years now, and it is staggering the number of homes that Woodburn is adding to the inventory. This number is important when you're looking at your tax basis, when you're looking at where the voter pool is, the school system. So those are also numbers that we're going to watch and we're going to educate you on and make sure that we can guide you in the direction of what other sources you should be looking for when you're in the selling or buying process. And then the last thing is the volume of properties. So this is really huge as well because you might have a total number of properties and the market might be really, really good, and that dollar transaction that's changing hands might be drastically different if the market was significantly lower. And so as an average, when we're talking about over 1,000 properties that have been sold in the last couple of years, that number can really change. And so just making sure that we have a handle on that and watching when it creeps to that next large number. So those are some of the things. In the next couple slides, we went over from 2018 to 2020. This is what I would consider a really healthy market. It was on the 6th year of an up market from the bottom of the recession. And so that was pretty healthy numbers. So we looked at those numbers for 3 years, and then we've been in the pandemic, and now we're post-pandemic. Those pandemic era numbers were really outliers, but they're what's most fresh in our mind. And so when you look at those pandemic numbers, I want you to make sure that you're not basing future decisions on those numbers, because we'll never see that kind of appreciation or those numbers again. And then where we're at right now, we're heading back towards a balanced market. And so we're giving you the numbers for what numbers closing October 23 looked like. What does today look like if you were to buy or sell right now in the marketplace?
Can you give us a point on the total number of properties, like on school bond, bond, how that affects per household, per thousand, anything like that? Because we're going to have some of those bonds coming up.
When we go to bond on something, and right now we've passed a fire bond, we've passed a school bond, there's going to be a community center bond coming up. When those projects budget, they base it on the tax basis per $1,000 of assessed value of your home. So when they're looking at between 65 cents and $4 per $1,000 of assessed value, that's how you take on your tax statement, your assessed value, say $260,000 is what your assessed value is at your house. You times that by, anywhere from 65 cents to $4, depending on what the bonds come out. And when you vote on those bonds, those numbers are published. You do have a good idea of what's going to affect your taxes as you're voting. So you take that $1,000 times that amount divided by 12 months, and that's what it will increase your household budget by. So when you go to vote on these things, if you're a homeowner and you're in the voting population for one of these bonds, just be really aware of, all right, this XYZ fire bond. So that's a great example. I don't know the numbers on the fire bond, but say I know that if we pass this fire bond, they can get X amount of new trucks, they can staff, X amount of new firefighters that can be on 24/7. It will, fire bonds mainly reduce our insurance rates, and that's huge. As those numbers creep up, we have to do things like pass bonds to lower them again. So basically, we take that number, $1,000 of your assessed value divided by 1,000 times the number dollar value, and then divide that by 12, and you might say, is the safety of my kids, is the safety of my structures, is the response time, basically just the safety of our community, is that worth this $35 a month? And when you break it down like that, these are billion-dollar, these are multi-million-dollar projects. And when you break it down to what it costs you as a citizen to have these amenities, that's what you need to be budgeting on, is what it costs you and the trade-off for, is it really worth it? All right, so we just told you what we're going to talk about. Here is those 2018 to 2020 numbers. The days on the market, so this means from the day we list it until the day it gets a pending offer, for those 3 years, the average was about 27, 28 days. At that time, we had a very healthy inventory of 2.47 months. That means if tomorrow we stopped selling houses in 2018, we would sell all of them in 2.47 months. At that time, believe it or not, the median sold price from 2018 to 2020 was $279,000. This number is drastically different now, so that's just, honestly, even just looking back 5 years ago, it's crazy to see that number under $300,000. And then year over year, this was really healthy. So there was a lot of times when we were selling homes that people were saying, this is not sustainable, we cannot keep going up every year, and we were really only seeing an increase of about 4.5% to 5% a year, which is a healthy, strong market. That is not anything astronomical. So those 3 years, we were at 4.7%. I would love to see it go back to that. That's a healthy number. The total numbers of properties that exchanged hands for those 3 years was 750. That means that average each year, about 250 homes were sold. The next statistic is that the volume of properties that was sold was 211 million. I think that when just me as a professional in this neighborhood, me as a professional in this city, when we used to run these numbers, they used to hang out right at 99 million. 99, 101, they were always about 100 million. We added some new construction to town, and the next year, our resale price dropped significantly because the competition with that new construction was really difficult to keep up with. And the volume of properties that exchanged hands in the year after we onboarded all that new construction was $210 million. So that's a staggering statistic when you're looking at 1 year, 99 million, the next year, $200 million. It was a lot of infrastructure for our city to absorb, and I think we're still feeling the effects of that on the resale market. So then our appreciation from 2020 to now, which I ran these numbers through September of this year, and then when we do October, so they are not included. So the pandemic era days on market was 23.21. So all over the news, you saw 0 days, 3 days, 4 days, and the average was still only 4 days shorter than the pre-pandemic. That's important to note, I think. This is the average of 1.33 months of inventory. That seems a little bit higher than it really was because there was some months that we had almost no inventory to sell, or it felt like that. So the fact that our inventory for those 3 years of the pandemic was still over a year leads me to believe that at least our market in Woodburn was healthier than we thought it was. The next thing right here, in 3 years, the median sale price of homes in Woodburn increased by over $100,000. I think that's something that when we talk about housing affordability and how quickly things shot up, that was hard to come to terms with all at once. The only thing that was saving us was that interest rates were trending down. So home prices were trending up, interest rates were trending down, and people most of the time set their monthly budgets on their people most of the time set their budgets on the monthly cost of home ownership. And because of that inverse of the interest rates going down, home prices rising, that monthly cost wasn't rising significantly. And that's what kept housing affordability where it was and how quickly the market was still moving. So these 3 years during the pandemic, the year over year percentage on an average was over 10%. That was a number that was still considerably lower than the crash. So 2004 to 2008, we were seeing property values increase above 20%. That was unsustainable. This is one indicator of why we are not headed back to a recession right now. And then this is another number. So in 3 years, we did this statistic for 3 years. 3 years later, we did it again, and that number was almost exactly double. So we went from 750 for 3 years, and then we went to 1,511 for the next 3 years. The number of properties doubled, and the volume of properties tripled. That just goes to show how much that 10% increase was affecting those median sales prices as a whole when we do those calculations. And now what are we looking at today?
So today, days on market is actually up to 38. So it's 171% over month right now. So months of inventory, so we were at
1.33, 2018 to 2020, 2.47.
right, and now we're at 2.12. So we're seeing them actually a much healthier market, especially if you're going out there and buying a home and everything right now too. So median sold price, we're still seeing increases even with everything going on. We're hearing about interest rates going up. We're still seeing prices actually go up. So we're at $422,000 for your median sold price. Number of properties, what were we at before?
Well, we did 3 years was 1,500.
This is just month over month.
Was
So
23.
So right now we have 23 homes that actually sold in the month of October. Total volume of properties. And those 23 properties equal to $9.9 million. So pretty crazy.